All right, here we go. Version 2 of my bug bounty hunting framework. The Arson framework is now live, or at least the beta version of it is live on the repo here. I'll share my screen out here in just a second, but before we jump into the tool itself, and this is going to be your walkthrough to look at, how do we install it? I'm going to walk through every single individual piece of the framework, help you to use it, show you how I use it, show you how it fits into my larger setup with Burp Suite and everything else. We'll get to that in just a second, but first, I want to be really, really clear up front in this video what the purpose of this tool is and more importantly, what problem I'm trying to solve with this tool. So starting bug bounty hunting is very, very difficult. There's so much information that's out there that you can go and find, so many different videos, so many people trying to sell you things as well. It's all types of different information. Everybody will tell you they got the secret to go, start making $500 a day, whatever it is. Yeah, there's so many different tools that need to be downloaded and environments you need to set up that even if somebody is like a developer or works in DevOps or even application security and everything, you just may not have been exposed to, or it's just a lot. And there's a lot of friction to actually going from deciding that you want to explore or start doing bug bounty hunting to actually testing on live programs, learning while you're testing and having the possibility of submitting a report and earning some money. I want to eliminate that friction at the beginning. So if somebody decides at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that they want to start bug bounty hunting, then by 6 p.m. that night, they are actively bug bounty hunting on my framework on a real public target, on a real program. They are going through the things, they're learning how to do the methodology, first of all, by using the tool and also by the additional educational resources that are built into the tool. But yeah, that's really it. So somebody decides they want to start doing bug bounty hunting within a few hours, they can be up and running and they can be testing on live targets and do that by, the framework is essentially a wrapper around 20, I think it's 22 now, I got to take a look again, but a large number of the most commonly used bug bounty hunting tools, open source tools. It's all built out into a methodology where the user interface basically forces you to go through at least what I consider to be a very effective methodology. So just by the nature of using the tool, you're going to learn how to do bug bounty hunting. You're going to learn that methodology. Right now, once you get to the point where you're really moving along, you found your version of success, you can run the tool headless and use the API, and you can build out all types of complex scripts and things like that if you're interested. But ultimately, the people that I want to help, the people that this tool is designed for, is the developer, the bug bounty researcher, even the person that maybe doesn't know a lot about technology, but is just interested and excited about learning bug bounty hunting. The goal is that they can make that decision to start learning bug bounty hunting. I want to be their starting point. They come to me, they have all of my YouTube content built out there to help teach them. They have the framework as well, which they can download, they can install and immediately start running. It works on Windows, Mac, and Linux. I've had it thoroughly tested on all three, works really well, fully Dockerized, etc. So wanted to be really clear about that up front. Let's go ahead and get the screens flipped here and we will install it on my Windows machine. And again, I'm going to walk through every single piece from top to bottom here. So we'll let that finish switching around. And here we go. So I have the repo up here, right? If you come to my profile, it's going to be one of the main ones at the top here. So you can just go to my GitHub, come up to Arson Framework version 2, and then you can go and download it. So let me kind of scroll down here and I'm going to get the installation started and then we'll come back and we'll look through all the README while it's going because it can take quite a bit of time to go ahead and install. And we're going to talk about all the different things that you can do if you need any help installing anything like that, how you can go about it. But so the first thing I'm going to do, just right away, come down to this and hit download and install. And it's going to take me straight into where I need to be. So there's 3 things that you want to make sure you have going before you run the framework. And really you should do it before you download it or install it, just to make sure you're good. You need to make sure that Docker is installed. You need to make sure that Docker Compose is installed as well. Those are 2 completely different tools. And then you need to make sure that the Docker and Docker Compose processes are running. So that's, if you're on Windows, what you'll see is we'll run Docker Desktop. You know, it depends. Linux, there's typically going to be some different commands and everything in there. I've got stuff. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this started. Now, to install the framework, you're going to do 4 steps. Very easy. It's the same thing for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux. 1, 2, 3, 4, super simple, right? Don't worry about going to find. Do not clone it. Do not get cloned. Do not get cloned. Do not get cloned. If you're doing that, you're using an unstable version. I build off the main branch. I don't want to change the way that I'm doing it for that. You don't need to get clone it. You can just come down here. I'm going to keep the README updated that points to the latest stable version. So all you have to do, don't go anywhere else, come down here to download and install, and you're just going to copy and paste. I've made it as easy as I possibly can for people, right? So you come down here, click on the copy button, and let's pull up our thing here. Now, we go ahead and just paste it. You can see invoke web request. So this is a PowerShell command, right? So just make sure that you are running in a PowerShell terminal here. Otherwise, it's not going to work if you're just in a typical Windows terminal. But we'll go ahead and get that downloaded. Doesn't take too long at all. Took a lot longer when I accidentally included all of the node module folders. When I originally did this, there you go, see, it doesn't take too long at all. Yeah, it took about 3 times that long when I did it before. Okay, so now let's go ahead and compress it, right? So step 2, we're going to extract the file, not compress it, extract the file. You know what I'm trying to say. Oh, man. I have been burning the candle at both ends trying to get this ready, and my mind is leaking out of my nose, ears, just about everywhere. So, okay. Again, step 1, download the zip file, right? Easy, points to the correct one. Step 2, extract it. Step 3, we're just going to move into that directory. Again, I'm just trying to make this absolutely as easy as possible. And then finally, we're just going to run docker compose up tac build. You know, and that's going to take quite a bit of time. You're going to see the first thing it's going to do here is pull out the Postgres database, build everything out. I'll run through just real quick, even though I put this in a lot of other places, some of the improvements for between version 1 and version 2, right? We're no longer on MongoDB. We're using Postgres instead of the Python backend. We have a Go backend, so it's a lot better when it comes to multi-threading, things like that. It's actually a little bit more stable too because it's compiled there. Yeah, the front end still React. You know, it is what it is. I'm very comfortable with React. I know a lot of people disagree that that's a great framework there, but it does what I needed it to do. So that's what I used. And honestly, I was already using Go was new to me when I started this. Very comfortable with it now, but I don't want to go to a whole different technology stack there. Anyway, let's come back over here. And let's look at the README itself. Well, it's probably going to take about 10 minutes to get everything installed here. So all of your major pieces are up here at the front, right? So you can just click on it and it'll take you right to it. So that's the first thing that I would say if you need to get to something, because the README is kind of long. I'm probably going to do a proper, documentation and everything that'll link over to it at some point, but it's a little early for that now, just at the start of a beta launch. So this will look a little bit different by the time you're seeing this video, most likely. This will be updated, and then the thumbnail for this video will probably be in this area as well. I haven't decided exactly, but I'm recording this the week before DEFCON. Still got a little bit more to do while I'm getting everything ready for that. So okay, let's see. So come down here. There's a quick section just kind of talking about what it is. This is mimicking what I had in version 1. Just kind of talks a little bit, like I said at the beginning, about the problems I'm trying to solve. We don't need to go through that. I do have my older videos here I did a couple demo releases as part of building this. Again, if you're watching this around the time it releases, you may know in the future, nobody's going to know or care. This video is going to cover everything that was in those videos anyway. So I don't even know if those will still be in there. I did include a list of the majority of the tools that are part of this framework. So again, it's basically a giant wrapper around all these different frameworks. Now, things like Reverse Whois and Shodan and everything, I don't know if you technically call that tools, although Shodan I use the CLI. But anyway, yeah. So the goal is you download this framework and every single one of these tools comes with it. And I'm going to make it very, very easy to run it with an optimized command. You want to eventually over time go in and learn a lot more about how each one of these works and use them in your own way. But if you're just starting or you want to go ahead and get data, this is going to get you where it needs to be, and that's really the goal here. Again, have somebody pick it up and start actively hunting on day 1 of their bug bounty hunting journey. So we're back down to the download and install. We've already talked a little bit about that, right? 4-step process. You've seen me do it. It's the same thing for each one there. So I'll skip on here to the getting started, but we'll talk through a lot of this in the workflows and everything once we're actually looking at the tool. Let's actually check in on our installation. Ooh, we're just about done. This is going quicker than I thought it would, but that will work. All right, so you'll get all these here if you're not too familiar with Docker. By the way, if you're not familiar with Docker, and you want to use my framework as a major part of what you're doing for your bug bounty hunting, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and get familiar with it. It's not that complicated. It's running like a bunch of little virtual machines is maybe a very, very simple way to put it. But yeah, it seems more complicated than it is. So probably learn the basics of Docker. Yeah, just going to make your life a lot easier. So the database will take just a little bit. It's building everything out. We'll come back over here. Let's skip past this again. Let's go back up to the top so we can click on it. We'll skip past the getting started in the workflows because that's what we're going to talk through, as we're going through the actual tool and showing it. I am going to go ahead and go to troubleshooting. So I tried my best to include as much information as I can about just general problems that I think you're going to run into and how you can solve it. 99%, I've already had a lot of people reaching out saying that the installation doesn't work. That's a problem with Docker. All right, if you can't get the tool to run, can't get the tool to build or install, I mean, there may be some compatibilities if you're not running it on like a typical operating system, and that's a different conversation. I'm willing to explore, supporting those, but I've already started to get a bunch of people just sending me messages, and the error message is very clearly like, Docker is just not running or you haven't installed Docker. So please, if you have any errors or issues before reaching out to me and asking me to help, make sure Docker is running, make sure, go through here in this troubleshooting thing, try a few of the different tests, right? So I've got just some basic stuff to make sure that Docker is working. You can test Docker by running this Hello World container that just exists up there in Docker Hub. You can test Docker Compose by building this YAML file and doing that. So again, I just try to include as much as possible so that you have some steps to go through before, you get to the point where you need to reach out to me, because obviously then there's a asynchronous delay. And the reality is I think a lot of people just kind of stop once they hit that blocker. So hopefully you won't hit that blocker. I'm not going to go through everything in here, but again, if you run through, if you see any, I try to find examples of the error messages you might find so you can try and search those, etc. Now, what I wanted to talk about before we jump to the actual tool is this getting help section right here. So if you have gone through, if you've done all the troubleshooting steps, if you installed it the way that I just showed, right? Very important. That is the only supported version. If you're trying to run this in some super fancy way and you can't seem to get it to work, I'm sorry. That's not something that I'm going to focus on right now as I'm trying to get the beta working. There's a lot of other things that I want to prioritize. So, but if you've gone through all those troubleshooting steps, if you installed it in the way that the README outlines to install it, and it's still not working for you, you can reach out to me to get help. And this getting help section is going to tell you exactly how to do it. Now, we've got discussions and we have issues. They have a different purpose. Discussion is for any issues with installation or setup. If you cannot get the tool to run, please use the discussions. And the reason for that is, like I said, 99% of the time, that's going to be a problem with Docker. And we can have a conversation about Docker, but it's not an issue with my tool. If your Docker instance on your machine is corrupted or is not working or anything, that is not a problem with my tool, right? And I'm considering doing things like Electron or anything eventually, but right now it's just a Docker container. So if you have an issue with the discussion or an issue with the installation, use discussions. If, however, you have the tool running and you're getting some type of an error, one of the things that I've seen fairly commonly is people will go in and try to add their scope target to kind of get started, and they just get the generic error, something has gone wrong on the modal. Now, I'm going to be improving that error, the error messaging and everything as we go through this, but for the moment, that's what it is. I can tell you most of those that I've seen have been where somebody already had another service running on that port, and I'm going to be making some debug scripts that can maybe go and check those things. That's also included in the troubleshooting to validate, so please go and do that. But if for whatever reason the tool is not working after that, then you can open an issue. That's what the issue is for, right? And I think I said, yeah, I've got a couple things, feature request as well, security vulnerabilities, anything, although I want to get that properly built out so we can actually start having people register their own CVEs, and then I can support that, which is a whole other goal of this tool, but that's a different conversation. So if you get to this point, If you need to do the discussions or the issues, I've got a template for either one. Please use the template. That's why I made it. It's there for a reason, right? It's just got information about what operating system you're using. Like I want to see what happens when you run Docker Compose version, Docker version, everything else, information about your RAM. Just these are just all the things that I would hope to do, right? If you want me to stop everything that I'm doing and take my time and come and help you, then please take the time to go through the troubleshooting steps to fill this out so we can. If you open an issue or a discussion where you need help and it doesn't include this, I'm going to ask you to add it. If you don't add it within a week or two, I'm just going to close it out and ask you to reopen a new one and do that. So I hope that's fair. Seems fair to me, because look, I want to help everybody. I really do. But we have to meet in the middle. There needs to be a shared responsibility here. I've already gone through and built out the tool. I'm providing it for free. Please go through the effort and respect my time, and especially respect the other people in the community's time, because that's taking me away from where I could be creating a video or could be doing a live stream or could be making a feature request for somebody, etc. So I have a very, very finite amount of time. I've mentioned this over and over again. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't build these open source tools for any money on the side, right? I have a full-time job. I have a family. I have a life outside of all this. This is something that I just do because I'm passionate about it. But my time is just incredibly finite. I try to use it the best I can, but yeah. Anyway, so please, discussion template, issue template, please follow these guidelines here, and I will be more than happy to jump in and help you get my tool running. Okay, that's enough of that. So we'll come back over here and this all looks good. We can see the client is up and running on localhost 3000. We've got the API running on port 8443. I switched that over from 8080 for obvious reasons. Burp Suite, which we're going to look at a little bit later, but we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my Firefox over here and I will go to http://localhost 3000 there. And we're going to go ahead and load up the framework. So if you have no data in the tool and you first start it, this is the modal that you're going to see. And you have two different options. You can either create a new scope target from scratch, or you can import data from an existing scan, either from this arson file format, or we can do it by pointing it to a URL, which is what we're going to do to go ahead and get this populated, because it's the fastest way to get up and running and start testing on a live public bug bounty program. And one of the things that I'm going to commit to all of you is that I'm going to keep a repo with that data updated on the targets that I'm testing on, right? So if you want to hunt on the same targets that I'm hunting on, we can have conversations about those. We can do that. Because I'm going to start doing more live streams in the future, now that I finally have time. If I'm doing a live stream and I'm testing on a program, I'm always going to have the data that I'm using available for you. So you can jump into that live stream, you can bring the framework up, you can just type in the URL for that data, you can load it up here. It takes about 2 minutes, we'll see that now, and you can be actively testing with me. You can be contributing in the chat, say, hey, I see this, hey, check this out, right? I want to get a really cool community thing going here where we're all hunting as a team, we're all growing as a team and learning together, right? So, but let's go ahead and show first the add scope target, and we'll talk about the different types here. So again, if you want to start from scratch, you can add either a company, a wildcard, or a URL scope target. These are kind of meant to be representative of the scope targets that are in bug bounty programs, although I can tell you they've kind of taken on a bit of a different meaning for me as I've gone through the development process, and I may change the nomenclature to match at some point in the future. But ultimately for a company, the goal is to identify the company's entire attack surface. So we're going to look through that, but it's any public-facing target that could potentially be within scope for a bug bounty program that this company owns. We're going to start with a company name, and we're going to go from that to having their full attack surface. And then, obviously, once we have that, we can run nuclei scanning across their entire attack surface as well. Any target that we have, we're set up to do that. The wildcard, on the other hand, that's probably the one that most of you are going to be really familiar with. That's Jason Haddock's Recon methodology version 4, although I do kind of put my own spin on it. But yeah, ultimately you start with a root domain, and you're going to identify every subdomain that exists within that domain, or that's really the goal, right? You find everything, find every target within that root domain, and then we can gather a bunch of information on it. Now, all of those results can be pulled back into the company scan to be included in the attack surface evaluation and be included in the nuclei scanning as well. However, the wild card at the end of it, the workflow also has the return on investment report. And that's another big value add with this tool. So I hear this all the time. You know, it's been years now that I've been making this content and helping people who want to start with bug bounty hunting, help them get started. And I hear over and over and over and over and over again that people understand how to conduct this subdomain enumeration, but once they get to the end, they essentially have a list of fully qualified domain names, right? So it's the root domain plus the subdomain, and it's a URL essentially that points to a live web server that they can test. So they may start with, you know, github.com, and they end with a list of, you know, 1,000 URLs that they can potentially target. And figuring out or kind of learning to identify which of those targets are worth your time as a bug bounty researcher or might potentially have bugs is one of the most difficult things to do. It takes years and years and years to start to recognize those little things, those little what I call pointers within the application that show the researcher that there could be misconfigurations there, or the attack surface is large enough that it's worth their time, or there's some level of complexity. There's all types of different things that it could be. But the return on investment report, so my goal over time, it's fairly rudimentary right now. It's fairly simple. Why do I say rudimentary? I'm not that, that's too fancy. I don't talk that fancy. But it's fairly simple right now, the algorithm. It just, you know, it goes through and gathers a whole bunch of information on the SSL certs. It tries to crawl it. It tries to do fuzzing on it. It pulls all the different technologies. It checks the infrastructure, everything that it can. It's going to get a lot more intelligent, but ultimately the goal is to bake my experience into that algorithm, so that once you run this, it will return a report to you that will have each target. It'll have a whole bunch of information about the target, and it'll have a score that will represent the amount of return on investment that a bug bounty researcher might get for focusing on that target. And it'll order them by the most return on investment. You can go through and do it. So that is eventually going to be one of the major value adds of the tool, is as that algorithm develops and gets more and more sophisticated, it's going to be able to hopefully point newer bug bounty hunters, or even brand new bug bounty hunters, in the right direction at those critical decision points, so that they're not going to waste their time on other targets, and gives them a better chance of finding bugs early, right? Ultimately, the goal is we want to get more qualified people doing bug bounty hunting so that they can submit high quality reports. The more high quality reports that come in, the more companies are going to be interested in coming in and participating in bug bounty hunting, and we can elevate the entire industry. That is, if you want to get to the highest level of what I'm trying to do here, that's it, right? So that's the wild card. And then the URL. So the URL is, let me say this. The URL is not meant to compete with Burp Suite, the URL workflow, because that's ultimately what Burp Suite is. It's a tool for identifying attack vectors and scanning for attack vectors and testing for specific attacks against a target URL. Now, obviously, you can do a bunch of different target URLs, but you don't use Burp Suite to do subdomain enumeration. You use it to dig into a specific URL and find those attack vectors. So I don't want to compete with Burp Suite. Ultimately, my framework is going to, there's basically a pivot point into Burp Suite that I use, and I'll show that more in a bit. The purpose of the URL workflow here, and it's not going to be included immediately in the beta version because it is more of an educational and learning piece, but I'm going to be building out dynamic lesson plans on real bug bounty targets to teach how to do manual testing and facilitate that manual testing as well. So it's not to say that you can't do manual testing or you're not going to find bugs in the URL target. It's just that you're going to have a better chance of finding something with Burp once you know how to use Burp. But if you're newer and you just fundamentally don't understand how to do things like cross-site scripting testing on a real target, or IDOR testing is a great example, right? So if you've seen my IDOR video, I talk about the different ways that the application can identify the identity of the client to determine whether or not they're authorized to grab the data. So as opposed to pointing somebody to a lab, I'll be able to use my framework to identify how they're doing that and walk the user step by step with these dynamic lessons through actually testing against different endpoints, right? Client-side injections will be the same type of thing, right? My tool will run scans to find any any instance where user controlled input is reflected in the DOM, and it'll sort that out by here's where it's reflected directly. So the request comes in, the response reflects it back. Here's where it's reflected from the database, so a stored cross-site scripting. And here's where it possibly just happens in the DOM and never even requires a request to leave, right? So we have all those attack vectors. Now we can build out a modal that will dynamically walk them through and say, okay, go to this, test this payload, test this payload. We'll have all the different types of payloads that you can easily click and test a ton of different types of cross-site scripting. And then eventually you'll have like an automated version of it too, right? So you get to see it'll build out these dynamic lesson plans to help somebody just walk through on a real bug bounty target step by step and actually do that testing on it. So anyway, for the beta version, we have the full company and wildcard workflow. Those are the workflows that have a lot more utility. It's something that I'm actively using right now in my bug bounty hunting. And so I wanted to make sure that those were available. All right, so let's go ahead and go back and let's look at importing scan data. Now, as I said, you can import one of these .arson files as well. And a .arson file, you can see here, they're exported from the framework. It creates it automatically. It compresses everything into a binary. So I'm trying to keep them, relatively small there. But so yeah, so you can have your own, you can share them with your friends, but really the easiest way to get started, like I said, is you just come to this import from URL, right? And we've got a column here where we can just paste a URL going directly to that arson, or to that .arson file, the raw .arson file. So let me go ahead and bring GitHub back over here. And in addition to the Arson Framework version 2, I also have the Arson Framework version 2 scan data, which is right here. And this has, like I said, it only has a couple right now. Grammarly is one of the main ones, and I've just uploaded one for GitHub today. We'll look at Grammarly here, but yeah, ultimately it's just a collection of these .arson files that are directly exported, and you can go and download them and use them however you like. So once again, the quickest way to go ahead and get started is let's come down here. Let's find the newer one, right? So this is on the 27th. I'm gonna click on this. We don't need to see it, but we can come over here to the raw button, right click, copy link address. Let's minimize this. We're gonna paste it in here and just hit import database. Now this is gonna take a couple minutes, actually probably not even a couple minutes, but it'll take a little bit of time to go ahead. We'll see a green banner pop up here, and we'll actually see this populate in the back end there, which shows that all of the database, and this was just me, right? I spent a couple of days running the framework and gathering all this information on Grammarly. Grammarly is one that I'm really dialed into because I'm doing a lot of AI focused bug bounty hunting. By the way, look forward to that video. I've already started recording client-side bug bounty hunting for client-side injections part 2. And then after that is going to be bug bounty hunting for cloud infrastructure vulnerabilities and bug bounty hunting for AI vulnerabilities. I want to start moving into where the industry is going. But all right, so we can see that. We can just go ahead and close out of the modal now. And we have all of our information here for Grammarly. You can see in the scope target, I've got a ton of different scope targets that have already loaded up. We've got the company itself here. We have information on root domains, wildcard targets that have been created. We've got all types of different cloud enumeration that we've done here. We've got the full attack surface with thousands of different targets. We've got our nuclei scanning results that loaded up that quickly that we can just come in and boom, we already have a medium finding in there and some large or some low findings, right? So you can go ahead and jump into these immediately and start testing. All right, so let's go ahead and come back here and we can walk through the tool step by step. I'm going to explain why we have it, every single section, how to run it. I want to make sure that at the end of this video, you have everything you need to start hunting using the tool. So let's do it. Now, first, if you look at the UI, hopefully it's very clear how everything is laid out. The goal is for each one of these blocks that would be identified by one of these gray labels. These are essentially a step or a section of the methodology to solve a problem or to take one step forward, right? So you can kind of couple them together. Here's another step, and then we have multiple different tools depending on what we're trying to accomplish and what open source tools might be available for each one of those steps here. All right, so you can see they get a little more complicated. Some of them have additional buttons and things with it, but fundamentally the entire tool follows that same process, right? So you can see through the company, And then if we come over and let's just look at Grammarly.com, we'll see the same type of thing, right? Now, one of the big differences between the wildcard and the company scan is the wildcard has an auto scan here that will fully automate the process, a little bit easier when you're doing the subdomain enumeration. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, same type of thing, right? We hit AMAS, subdomain scraping, round one of Consolidate, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll see each one of these blocks. And then in addition to that, every block, every step of the methodology also has a help me learn section. I tried to include as much as possible within here to teach step by step as you're going through the methodology, as you're running each of these tools. So ideally, if you're brand new to bug bounty hunting, well, then you can come in and, click a button to, let's come in and we'll just run Asset Finder and CTL over here as well. And while those are running and gathering everything, we can come up and read through these. Now, most of the Help Me Learn sections follow the same steps, the same 3 steps or the same 3 questions, right? What stage in the methodology are we at? What are we trying to do, right? What's the why behind this stage of the methodology? And then digging into more specific, what tools are we using? What techniques are we using? And then how do those work, right? So it starts at very high level, more of like the methodology and the why. And as we get further down, we have a lot more information about, the specifics that are being run here. Let's try CTL one more time. We might be getting blocked here, but that's okay. You can see Asset Finder has finished. In addition to that, so you've got all these bullet points, but I want to provide full lessons and a lot more information for somebody if they want. So you also have these learn more buttons. Any one of these is going to open up a modal, and every single one of these buttons has a unique lesson about this stage of the methodology, what we're trying to accomplish, what tools are being run, how those tools work, what you're looking for as a result, everything like that. And a bunch of additional links and stuff too, where you can keep reading, right? So this one right here comes through. We've got some bug bounty tips at the end of each one, and then some additional links and information that you can do. Again, every single one of these is going to have something different. If there's things that you can actually run, you can see that in there as well. So once again, just really leaning into the commitment that this tool is not only going to help with your recon, it's also going to help you learn how to do recon and ultimately, hopefully improve your methodology there. So, all right, we can go ahead and close that out. Again, that's in every single section. Let's go ahead and come back over to Grammarly in the main section here, in the company workflow. So we're going to go ahead and start with this. Let's pretend, and the only reason I'm not doing this because it would take me 2 or 3 days probably to record this video, because a lot of these tools, and especially once you start to gather a lot of data, they can take quite a bit of time to go through and evaluate. So please have those expectations. But we're going to pretend that we had just added this, and we're going to walk through step by step. So at this point, all we have is the company name right here, Grammarly. And we need to use that to start building up an attack surface. So the first thing that we can look at is we can look at if they have any assets, any targets that are hosted on-prem or on premises. Now, what that means is they're not hosted in the cloud. So they have a building somewhere that they own or rent, and they have an IP range of external facing assets, web applications, SFTP servers, whatever it may be, that are tied to this on-prem infrastructure. And we kind of want to look at these. Let me scroll down a little bit here. We kind of start with this and want to look at this in its own package. This just gives us, first of all, we can find good targets, and this is something that a lot of people will overlook, but it also will help give us a picture of the company and the types of things that they're doing. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to find if they have any autonomous system numbers or ASNs that are associated to network ranges. Now, what is an ASN? When a company wants to have a range of IP addresses that are publicly available, that are on the internet, the way that they do that is they reach out to an internet service provider or an ISP, and they tell that they essentially purchase this IP range from the internet service provider. Now, when they do that, they register what's called an ASN, an autonomous system number. And this ASN it's a short, so most of them are 5 digits, some of them are 6 digits. You may see like AS, yeah, it is what it is. But those are tied to network ranges that would, whatever it may be, right? Like 10 152.153.0/24, you know, and they purchase a whole Class C subnet. Gosh, it's been like 20 years since I've done subnetting. If somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, probably am, but you know what I mean, right? You purchase that. And the great thing about these ASNs when they're registered, when they're purchased, is they really have 3 bits of information together. There's the ASN number, there's the network ranges that are available to the open internet, and then there's a string that represents the company that purchased them. So if Best Buy or GitHub or GitLab or Grammarly or whoever, they want to do this, they're going to go and register that ASN number with a string that will say, you know, Best Buy LTC, or, you know, whatever company is, they kind of choose it. What they're really doing is they're just filling out a form as they're registering it. But a lot of companies don't realize that whatever they put within that form will go out and will be public. Now, all this ASN information is public. You can query it. So that's what we're going to do on the first step. We're just going to take the company name. So in this case, it's Grammarly, and we want to search through all known ASNs to determine whether or not they have any on-prem infrastructure. Now, it's not 100%. And I've got 2 different tools here. There's AMAS Intel, which AMAS we're going to talk about a lot. We'll use it in several different ways. And then MetaBigger is just another, by the way, let me know if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I've always wondered, but essentially they both work the same way. They search through these ASNs. This is a really specific thing. I wanted to include them both just in case. Sometimes you get conflicting information from them and then you can consolidate it there, but that's it. So we can run each of those and we will pull some network ranges and then we can move on here to the next step. Now, I've already run both of these for Grammarly and I got a 0 for both of these. I didn't get any results. I want to tell you that that's fairly common, and I want to give you a second to think about why you think that is. Why is it fairly common that a lot of companies, especially maybe more modern companies, never have results when you try to find an ASN number or an ASN or network ranges associated with them? I'll let you think for a second. I'm going to get a little coffee. That's probably enough of a second. So the reason is they are 100% cloud hosted. They just don't have any on-prem infrastructure. Most of you probably dialed into that right away, right? So it's very common to get no results here, and that's totally fine if you do. We're just going, you know, it just means that they don't have any targets to focus there, and we can move on to domain names, we can move on to cloud infrastructure, things like that, and we can move. But if there is any network ranges, if there is an ASN, the next step that we want to do is we want to go from these network ranges. So we essentially have subnets that we know are pointing to potentially open IP addresses for them. So first thing we want to do is consolidate it, right? And we can trim, if there's any ones that come back that you just think, this only happened to me a couple times, but you just think there's no way, that's the tool messed up or it's grabbing the wrong thing, you can go and remove those. Or if you just want to focus in on a couple different subnets, you can do that as well. But get rid of any you don't want. Then you're going to consolidate them. So, you know, network range associated with an ASN number, we don't need multiple instances of the same one. So we get a unique list. And then we're going to go through and do an IP and a port scan here on every single one of those. Now, what does that mean? We want to see which one of these IP addresses is actually live in some way. And it's always going to be an IP address and a port combination. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to open up a raw socket, and we're going to use that raw socket to send just a TCP SYN packet. We don't want to do a whole TCP handshake because that can take quite a bit more time and there's a bunch of additional information that's exchanged there. We just want to open up a raw socket and we want to send a SYN to the IP address and port combination and just wait to see if it responds with an ACK. If it does respond with an ACK, then we know that we have a TCP-based external protocol on this IP and port combination, and we can potentially start to dive in there. Now, I want to be very, very clear. Not all programs allow for testing on this. You need to be really, really sure that these network ranges are within scope before you start running this, because this can be slightly intrusive, especially once we go in and gather metadata for any of these IP and port combinations that we found, right? So be very careful. You're using this tool at your own risk. Be respectful to the companies that are allowing you to come in and conduct penetration testing and bug bounty hunting. They don't have to do it. Let's make it a win-win scenario for you and the companies. Let's try to take advantage of these companies that are taking a bit of risk by also, doing this bug bounty program. We want to make it a win-win for everybody, right? But so we go through. Once this is done, we're going to have a list of, IP port combinations that can potentially be tested. And this gather metadata, this is going to go through and test what they are, right? Is it HTTP based? Is it FTP, SFTP? Test all types of different protocols on each one. Obviously, the port that's open is going to try and guess. If it is HTTP based, it'll go through and gather a bunch of information on it, identify it as live web server, et cetera. So, we're going to do our best to find as much information as we can on all these different public-facing IP port combinations that are on their on-prem infrastructure, and they can view them in the results. So that's the first big section of the company framework. We're going to focus in on on-prem assets that we can potentially target for bug bounty hunting. Once that's done, and again, we've got a ton of information about what we're doing here and everything too, what are the actual ports, additional reading, such and such. Okay. Once that's done, we're going to move on to root domain discovery. So we're going to stop thinking about where the target is hosted for a little bit. That'll come back later when we start looking at the cloud infrastructure. But for now, we just want to know what domain names exist. And by the way, DNS records are one of the most valuable things that you can use for bug bounty hunting. If you don't understand DNS and all the different types of records and how they work, and you're not using them as part of your bug bounty hunting or Recon specifically, you're probably using them in some way, but really understanding them, it's like a superpower to be able to go from the different records and say, okay, this ties to this infrastructure and everything. So I really can't recommend that enough. But ultimately, we're looking for root domains at this point. What is a root domain? A root domain is so there's a top level domain is essentially .com, .org, etc. That's the end bit there. A root domain is typically something like, here would be like Grammarly.com, Grammarly.io. It is the domain there plus the top level domain. And ideally, a root domain would typically point to the core domain of an application is the best way that I can describe it. Now, there's a lot of different, right? Like, this is not 100%. There's a lot of different edge cases. There's a lot of different things. But ultimately, what we want to find is we want to find domain names that are associated with web applications that are viable targets for bug bounty hunting that this company owns. And specifically, we want to try to find domains that have subdomains that we can expand to. That's really what we're looking for here. Now, we can get any domain that we want, but the goal is to go through and find these root domains that most likely have a good number of subdomains to expand our attack surface, and then we can come down and add those as wildcard targets. We can continue our testing over there where we can find all the subdomains, keep expanding that out. So the way that we're going to do this, I've broken it up into two different sections. There's a section with no API key, and there's a section with API keys here, and you can even see over here, there's Security Trails and GitHub Recon, which these are both free. At least Security Trails has a trial where you can use, and then Shodan and Census, where there is no way to use these without paying some money. So you don't need all four. The more you have, the more results you're going to find. Census tends to be very good if you're willing to pay for it, but it also can be pretty expensive for a lot of people. So I want to put the options in here, but I always want to make sure that you can use my tool 100% for free day one. Don't have to invest any money. No gatekeeping, no barrier, no friction. So these are here if you want it, but you definitely don't need to do it. So looking back up at the no API key first, there's three different ways that we're going to do this. So the automated version is the certificate transparency logs here. Now, Grammarly, for some reason, doesn't seem to be returning this, or maybe they return a lot and I deleted them. I don't know why, and I don't want to do it for this demo. You can download the data. You can hit scan and test it out yourself. In fact, let's hit history on here and see. Oh, maybe I've just never run one. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Anyway, you've got three different options. So this one right here, the certificate transparency logs, it's going to make a query. There's, what is it called? Shoot. CRT.sh is a bash script that will query public certificate transparency logs. Here they're querying them by organization name. We'll see later in the wildcard workflow that they're also queried by the domain. That's just the functionality of CRT right there. Oh, I forgot, I have it labeled right there. And this actually, in all of these, point to the different tools. You can click on that. So here's the actual one that you would run up and use there. But yeah, so that one's very simple. Hit scan, it'll go out, it'll collect everything. Again, I don't want to press this now because I don't know what's going to happen. And I want to keep moving with the demo here. But we also have two different manual steps here. Now, I've done my best to automate them as much as possible, but fundamentally they are a manual process here. Reverse whois, maybe not, but so let's start with this. Let's start with a reverse whois, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the manual process here. So a whois lookup is used to identify information that was recorded when a domain name was registered. So kind of like with the ASN numbers, where a company goes and registers an ASN, they fill out a form, they put in their organization, and that's publicly, you can query that. You can run a whois on a specific domain, and it will give you information on the company that registered it, etc. So now what you could do is you could keep cycling through every possible domain that you found and run a whois to find out whether or not, to see if you can find one owned by that company. But that's very difficult. What you really want to do is do a reverse whois. So you want to query the company name and identify any domain names that have that company name in the whois results. Now, there's no just easy way to do that. Ultimately, somebody has to build out a database so that you can query this. Somebody has to have a script running that is constantly going through and running whois lookups on every possible domain that comes out there and builds up a database. And then you query that database for the company string, and it will return all of the domain names that have that company string in there. Now, it's not 100% reliable. It depends on the company and everything. So you've got to go in and make sure, but ultimately that's what you're doing. So I've included two different options here for the ones that I use most commonly, and also the ones that were easier to automate as part of this. I try to make everything as automated as possible when you have to do something like this. So if you click on View DNS, the cool thing about this is there's actually a get parameter that we can do. So it'll automatically take you in here and we can see this. And again, you'll want to do a little bit of research, probably do your own whois lookup and everything as well. I'm not going to do this for this, but once you've confirmed that these are owned, or actually let's go to Grammarly.org and see if that has anything. Then all you have to do is come back, paste it in here, add domain. That simple. Adds right in there. You can see your success down at the bottom. This is another service that I've used. It does have an API, but it costs money, so I don't have that in there. But you can just come in, go to company name, and you have to manually do that. You can see where I was searching GitHub as well, and it will give you a portion of the results here. I wonder if that's really, Grammarly.sucks. Are they just buying these? I can tell you that this website, I don't consider this one as reputable as viewdns.info. I really hope that's a real thing that Grammarly owns. That is hilarious. But yeah, that's enough of that. All right, I think you get the point, right? Go in there, do that. Fairly simple. Most of the manual root domain discovery that you're going to do is going to go through Google Dorking. Or at least that's what I do. That's the majority of it. Is going to happen through that. So Google has, an almost infinite number of indexed domains that you can go through and you can look for, and these search results will kind of give you a hint. So Google Dorking, very, very effective way to do this. I've been doing Google Dorking for many, many years, and one of the things that has always been kind of frustrating about it to me is just moving back and forth between a ton of different tabs and windows. It makes it easier if you have, 8 or 9 monitors around you, but still. So I did my best to solve that problem in this utility right here. And this is actually, you may have heard me talk about this. This is probably one of my favorite pieces of the tool. Once I've actually started going in and using it, this is the thing that every time I use it, I'm like, oh, I built a pretty cool thing here. So you can see this, it opens up. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different Google Docs that are automatically built in that are sorted based on different requirements. These are all things that I have used to find root domains and other bug bounty hunting targets over the years, along with a bunch of others that I just found through research and everything. So you can very easily, and you can open a new tab as well, but you can very easily just go through and hit this load button. And as you can see, over here to the right, you have that tab load up directly in the framework. And it is so easy to just click there. Let's load that one. Let's load this one. And especially, I love this. Interesting, Grammarly.org is not a valid domain. We just saw it on the reverse who is, but it said it was registered through a Chinese GoDaddy thing. I don't know. Very interesting. There's some kind of a story that's happening there. But you can see this is also optimized for the no-click results in Google Gemini. So if Google Gemini has any information, GitLab.net I think is one of the best examples of that, because GitLab.net is GitLab's, oh, I'm sorry, GitHub.net, I'm sorry. But GitHub.net is one of their like internal network domain that you would really never find anything external facing you wouldn't know. Gemini tells you right away. It tells you that. So yeah, I love it. Probably not what GitHub intended when they were thinking about creating that and having the search, but yeah, the no-click results work really well. So yeah, you can just kind of come through. You can see they kind of get a little bit more complex here. Load, whatever it's going to be. And then when you do want to come and add one, then all you have to do down here at the bottom, Grammarly dot something, and you can just hit enter. It'll add it right away, just the other one. So yeah, very easy. Kind of scroll down here. By the way, you can go to multiple different pages as well. Yeah, big fan of this. Big fan of this one. I hope you are too. I hope it helps. All right, let's move away from that. So you can get away with not using any API keys if you want, and you come down and get these, then you can skip down to the consolidate root domains. But if you want to get a lot more findings, obviously using these tools with the API keys is it's going to be a little better. So I'm going to hit configure API keys here. And because we don't have any, you can see all the scan buttons are disabled right now because we don't have these available. So this is where you can come in and configure these API keys. You can add them, and more importantly here, you can select which one you want to do. Now this will link you to the settings modal if you click on it, but I want to show you the other way that we can get to that, which is to come up to the top, and we have our settings gear right here. And this is going to show all of our different settings, right? So I'll come back to all the different things at the end, but I'm going to go ahead and skip over to just API keys, not AI API keys. That's different functionality. The API keys here is where we're going to add in the API keys for that root domain discovery. So if you come down to select tool, first you decide which one you want to be. We can do this here. And then you give the key a name, right? I like to have multiple different keys that I use and switch through, multiple different GitHub paths as well, right? You may have ones with different permissions that are established, et cetera. So I'll just call this one demo here. And then you enter the value of the API key. Now I'm obviously not going to put mine in here, but I'll come and do this. And then once you just hit add API key, just takes a second, comes down here, right? We can come and do another one here with census. You can see there's an app secret as well. Sure, test, blah, 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 blah. Come down, add the API key. And then you can also delete one if you want. We can save those settings, done, right? So fairly easy. Once you have an API key added, look, we can see here that now census is enabled. The rest of them are still disabled. You go ahead and hit configure. Now, if there was no API key added and you do add one, it's going to automatically become active. Let me actually go and do, actually, let's do this. Click on this here. Click on the add API key so it takes us back to it. And then let's do another one with census. Test 2, blah, 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 blah. Add API key there, save settings. Where did we go? Here we go. Forgot we were already there. And now you can see we're still set to test, but we can move down to test 2 if we want to close that there. The moment that it's set, it's automatically saved. You don't have to save it. And once you have an API key here, you can load that. That's all I'll show for it. You can see I didn't even include this in the info, or I mean in the scan results. I'll do that later. But yeah, I mean, you can add these in, go through scan, it'll get you some additional results. I can tell you that GitHub and Shodan specifically, they tend to give you some erroneous results as well, some ones that are not correct. So that is a good segue into moving down here to once you have all the domains you found from both these different sections, the first thing that you can do is come in and trim those up. All right, so here you can click through the different ones, and if you have any findings, you know, you can select them all, deselect all, you can select a couple, and then you can just delete those. You can go in and click on the one by one and delete that. So let's maybe, oh wait, yeah, that's right. Yeah, this right here, I did Grammarly.something, so let's just hit delete real quick to get that out. Everything else still says. You can see that will update up here as well. So that said 5, now it dropped back down to 4. So all that is kind of maintained together. But yeah, so you can go into the trim root domains, you get rid of anything that you don't want to include in your scan, and then you hit the consolidate button. This is going to be pretty common, right? Over and over and over again. We have multiple different tools that are doing the same type of thing in a bit of a different way, trying to find the same information. We're going to have all of them reach out, gather their information, pull all of that back, and then we consolidate it into one list of all unique root domains that we can use after that. So the next thing you're going to do is press this investigate button. And the investigate button is going to go through with these root domains, and it's going to try to connect to them. It's going to get all the DNS information, SSL information. If it is able to connect to them, store all the HTTP information. What's the response code? What are the headers? What is the, is there a redirect? Is it single page app? All this different type of stuff to help you identify what's going to be a good target for the wildcard workflow. And then ultimately, once you're done, you can come hit this add wildcard target, and we'll go in and select that, and you can add them in there. So we'll look at that in a second. I do want to call out the validate button, and it's going to be disabled. It's disabled for everybody. This is going to be an AI feature that I'm building out. And if you look in the Docker Compose, you'll see that there's a local AI service that I'm building that will run as well. I haven't decided. I'm probably going to make like my own MCP server and have that hosted in AWS somewhere so you can connect to it. I'll probably do some things with ChatGPT and everything as well. Still a work in progress, still figuring out how I want AI to integrate with this whole thing. But ultimately, the purpose of this validate button is it's going to do its best using AI to process all of this metadata and information we got from the investigate scan to determine whether or not it thinks that this is actually owned by the company. So I do my best to kind of do that now with the wildcard target, but that's the goal. I want to, because that really is the challenge here at this stage, is going through and identifying which of these are actually owned by the company, whereas if it, maybe is just popping up from one of the scanners or something and it doesn't have anything to do with it. Because the last thing you want to do is start testing out of scope or on something completely different. So you can see here, once you're done, you've got this nice, search that works. If, I don't know, you just kind of dynamically want to search for things there, we can come through and, do we have anything that expires soon? Oh, we do. Interesting. I didn't even know that was there. But yeah, what are the different SSL statuses, HTTP statuses? A very basic version of that validate that I've built in here is the company match section. So let's come over and let's do this for everyone that matches. What this means is that I have found, or the tool has found, the company name in the DOM in an HTTP response when the whole response and everything loads up in a headless browser. So it loads each one of these in a headless browser, it lets the DOM fully load, and then it parses the final version of that DOM to try to find a matching string of the company name. If it does, it will show you that. And these are fairly likely that these are going to be owned by the company. The title is another one that's really good to see, right? You can see some time there. We can see that they're mostly hosted in AWS, but we've got this one here, Cloudflare. Right. All right. So all that is making sense from what we would expect to be. Let's open it up to the whole thing. You can scroll down, right? Very quickly see different things. Okay. I can get the picture. Oh, all these can be filtered too. So let's say instead you want to have everything on there, but you just want to, or sorted rather. I already said filtered, but yeah, you can sort it by that. You can do that as well. So once you're done, you decide which one of these you want to add as a wildcard scope target. And whenever you do, you just hit this add button. Let's just do that real quick here. And boom, it just adds it as a wildcard scope target. So we added DC1 Corp over there. Once that's done, when you come over and select active scope target, you're going to see that entered in there, which that was not there before. Now we can go ahead and delete this one because we don't need it. But at this point, actually, let's go back here to the company scan first for a second. Now, at this point in the methodology, you really have two different options. You can continue going with the domains that you found, and you can run your cloud asset enumeration, everything, go down to the full attack surface. But if you really want to find the full attack surface, then any target that you think has any subdomains, you'll want to add it as a wildcard target, and then we'll come up here and walk through the process, the scanning process here. You don't have to do the whole thing. If you come down here, you'll see that none of these, if you do gather this data, you'll see that I'm not gathering the screenshots. I'm not doing the metadata here, because ultimately the only thing that I need is the result of all these tools, right? I'm not looking to move on yet. I'm just doing my company scan and my nuclei scanning here. So that's typically how I do it from a methodology standpoint. Now, what does that actually look like? And again, I'm always using this auto scan here because that's just, it makes it so much easier. Otherwise, you're just manually clicking all these different targets. So the way that I'm going to do it, come up here to the auto scan and I'm going to hit configure. Now configure allows you to choose which tools, which steps run throughout this process, right? So you can come through and select and deselect different ones, however you like to do it. You can also set limits if you want to. Now this is more of a performance thing, and these will be less needed as it moves on, because a big thing that I'm doing in beta is making this more, improving performance. So you'll see as you start running it, it's super bulky and kind of clunky right now. Got a lot of area to improve, but hey, it's a beta launch, so that's to be expected. Yeah, but you can come in and set, these limits if you want to. I don't need to change them too much. Probably the most important part are these different scan profiles. I'm going to build out a bunch more of them, but the main ones that you'll need to do this workflow are going to be here. All right, so first, no report. I do this a lot when I'm moving from the company to the wildcard and I want to build everything out. Like I said, this just runs every single tool, but it doesn't gather these additional information here that we would be using if we want to move from the wildcard to the URL. We're not moving there yet. We're still in the wideband scanning with nuclei. We're still doing our recon and enumeration phase. So if you want to go really fast, or if it's a target that has a lot of results, like this Grammarly.com here, then you can also do a quick scan, no report. Gets rid of AMAS, gets rid of all these extra ones, just runs through the subdomain scraping and does that. You're going to be shocked at how often this is going to find 80% of what you need to continue on and start doing nuclei scanning. Just remember, if it's easy for you to find, it's easy for other people to find as well. So the more you dig in, the more that you take the time to do these bigger scans and go through and build on the workflow, the more likely it is that you're going to find something that other people haven't found. But for the sake of the tool, it certainly works there. So you can go and save that. Save this configuration here, and you can go ahead and just hit, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do this too. We're gonna make it super simple. Oh yeah, so the scan history, I didn't mean to click that, but this will work as well. Scan history will show you everyone that is run. Now this is actually a mistake from where I was doing some testing, kind of closing out and doing some development. So you're probably not gonna see that. Most of them you're gonna see completed or some type of an error or anything. But ultimately what it does is, it'll tell you how many were found. So you can see here, what tools were run, right? This goes into each different section here in the full methodology. So you can see what was the result. This one only took about 8 minutes. We found 112 live web servers just doing that quick scan, no report section right there. But yeah, but you can see what was run before. I'm gonna come in here to configure, and I'm gonna make this super quick. I'm gonna get rid of CTL, get all URLs, sublister, and we'll just run those two. Actually, let's just do that real quick. So we'll save that configuration, and I'm going to go ahead and hit auto scan here, and we'll see it start to run. Hey, now the percentage here will show you what's running. I'm going to go ahead and hit pause while we have a second, right? Because you can pause it. You can cancel the scan, anything. When you pause it, it will say pausing until the current tool that is running completes, and then it'll hit pause, give you an opportunity to resume or do whatever you want to do. The percentage that's calculated here, that is just, it basically takes the number of tools that are going to run and it divides it, by 100 and goes in and makes it. So it's not indicative of the amount of time it's going to take. The metadata scan at the end, if you include it, by far is going to take the longest time, by far. So you might see it stuck at 95% for, if you have 100 something here, expect it to take probably 8 hours at least, right? It's crawling, it's doing a ton of information gathering there. But you can pause it. Let's go ahead and resume this here. It'll just pick it right back up, move on to Asset Finder, Sub Finder, and then I'll just hit cancel as well, just to show. Same type of thing. Is canceling spelled wrong? That doesn't look right to me. I don't know if that's how you spell canceling, but either way, it's gonna finish sublister. You can see that's running here, and then once it's done, it's just gonna go ahead and say that it's canceled out. What else do I want to say here? The orchestration, or this auto scan, it's basically just an orchestration script or an automation script built in React. So there's no, every individual tool is tracked on the back end, But if you refresh the page, it's the same thing as canceling the button or canceling the scan right now. Now, I may change that in the future, but again, it's, ultimately, the goal is just to automate this, just help make it easier, help it run easier. So that's the reason that I wanted to build this out. I may kind of improve it, make it more stable between the front and the back end eventually, but it's, a little early to be thinking about. There's a lot of other things I want to build out first. So, all right, that's going to take a little bit to cancel out here. We can see that, probably right as I said it. There we go. That's done. So because it's canceled, it'll just show that it was completed, and within a second, it'll populate there. My computer is lagging a little bit just with the recording software and everything else is on here. So it should look a lot smoother on your machine. But again, performance is a main focus that I've got to do here. All right. So I don't want to spend too much time with the wildcard section, I guess, like the methodology itself, because again, it's Jason Haddock's Recon methodology version 4. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it, but let's just walk through the different pieces here and how it works. AMAS enum is a big staple. It's the first main one that we run. Now, on almost all targets, with the way that I'm doing this, I have a really specific command that I'm using with AMAS enum that does everything it can possibly do. We are optimized for trying to find the greatest number of results, not optimized for scan time. So no matter what the domain is, it's probably going to take at least an hour. There are some that take 30 minutes, but for me, even if there's a very few number of results, still there's a lot that take at least an hour just because it takes that much time to get through all the testing DNS queries and brute forcing and everything like that. There for some reason, occasionally it only takes 2 minutes for all domains, and it doesn't seem to be associated with it. Like, it's not a caching, or at least it's not me caching it. It's not like, oh, well, if I just ran it, it takes 2 minutes. There doesn't seem to be any specific pattern. I'm going off on a whole tangent. I can't figure it out, though. If anybody can figure out why that happens, I'd be super curious. It finds the same number of stuff. There must be some caching happening somewhere. There's no way it's not using caching at some point, but there's no way, it will happen. I'll do a brand new installation of Windows, copy this over, go and run. First time, it'll take 2 minutes, and it'll take an hour every single other time. I cannot figure it out. It's driving me crazy. But anyway, if you can figure it out, that's fine. Ultimately, expect a while for AMAS enum, skip it otherwise if you don't want to wait that long. Pretty much everything has scan history that shows how long it took to run. The raw results has the actual AMAS results here. Now, I'm going to do a lot to make these searchable and make them, do pagination and everything with that. These were some of the first things that I built out. The company the company workflow and everything was second. So the wildcard workflow is going to look a little bit more basic right now, especially like the results and everything. Those are all going to be built out. I need to figure out what exact pattern the community wants, and then I'll bring them all up to that standard there. But you can see the basic results there. Infrastructure map. This is a carryover from the first version of my framework. This is something that I'm a huge fan of. I don't know how much other people used. I also need to update the logic or whatever for it. But yeah, I like it, right? You can come in and you can see, and it kind of illustrates what we were talking about before. Here's your ASN number. There's that 5-digit number that points to, and we can see Amazon registered this. Now, here's a good example. We didn't find any results for on-prem assets for Grammarly because you can see the majority of their infrastructure is all managed by AWS. So this infrastructure map gives you a really good picture. We can see here's the CloudFront instances, which are A records, and then we've got the specific things here. And then you've got these over here, so we can point directly to Atlassian ones. Ideally, especially once you get into the A records here, you can see it'll link you to them, all the different instances. So this just makes sense to me. This is a really easy way to glance and see, okay, this domain is under this network range, which is under this ASN. So it's included in here. Some people use it, some people don't. For me, it's another one of those, like one of my favorite features that I use a lot. And so I include it in here, but I don't typically, I kind of just do it on my own. I don't know how much I've really shown it off in different things. DNS records. right? So once again, we have all of the results that are a specific DNS record, and you can easily go through and filter it. This does nothing right now. I'm going to build that out with testing CNAMEs and everything, but we do have some basic filtering that are built in here. Again, these are older modals. I'll build a lot more into this. Subdomains, same type of thing, just what subdomains were actually found. That's going to be included in there. And then cloud domains as well. So this is, and you can once again filter, I only want to see AWS. This one apparently has a ton of CloudFront, a couple of their ELBs and everything. So we're already starting to find those. And all of these results are going to be pulled back over to the company scan if that's what you want to do. But they're also included here in the wildcard. So yeah, and then we can just hit scan and that will manually do it. Once again, we've got all of our things in here. This should actually show the types of AMAS scans that we're running, etc. So AMAS, pretty self-explanatory. Moving on to subdomain scraping. So this is where we're going to use public resources. We're going to automate some Google dorking or across all types of different search engines, but Google especially. Looking at things like the Wayback Machine, at VirusTotal, at just any public repository where we can search a domain and it will return a list of subdomains. We're going to use those. So I've got 5 different tools. These are the ones that I've been using forever. I've definitely heard opinions of ones that people want me to include instead. Happy to have that conversation, but for now, this is what's in here. So, yep, Sublister, Asset Finder, get all URLs. Once again, the certificate transparency logs. This is the other place we use them, and then Subfinder. They're all basically, they work in different ways, but ultimately they all do the same thing. They use public resources to take the domain name and return a list of subdomains that are associated with that domain, right? Fairly simple. So once that's done, we want to consolidate those. So we have 5 different lists of subdomains. Most of them have a lot of overlap. So we consolidate all 5 of those into one list of unique subdomains that we can do there. And you can view those unique subdomains here. You can easily copy them, etc. And then you want to run an HTTPX scan, right? So that our goal, once we have a list of subdomains, we want to find out how many of those subdomains are live web servers that we can actively target with bug bounty hunting. And that's what HTTPX is going to do. I've got it built out with a ton of different ports that it's going to use, and it will run through those and identify HTTP, HTTPS, etc. Which one is a live web server? And then you can come in and view, your list. What was the status code? Again, definitely going to be some filtering and stuff added in here, but just haven't gotten around to building all that out in the wildcard workflow. So that's round 1. And we're going to keep doing this over and over again because in between every step, we need to take the new subdomains we're finding. We need to build out those live web servers so that the live web servers can be used in the following step. All right, so now we move on to brute force. Brute force is going to use shuffled DNS under the hood for both of these tools, but this one right here says shuffled DNS is going to be a static word list. CEWL is a dynamic word list that's going to be built out with the live web servers that we found in the previous round. So that's why we need to build out that live web server list before we move on to this. Shuffled DNS, it uses masscan under the hood, which does that raw TCP SYN packet trick that I was talking about in the company scan. It just does it. It's written in C, has a custom TCP stack, super, super, super fast to go and do that. So I love using shuffled DNS for it. I have my own word list that's included in here that I've had a lot of success with over my 6 years, I guess now, doing bug bounty hunting. Wow, I can't believe time is going by so fast. But so yeah, that's included for you. It's the exact same word list that I use. I don't keep anything that I have secret or private, so please go and use it. Hopefully you find stuff. CEWL, so for anybody that's not familiar with CEWL, that is a tool that crawls a list of live web servers, and then from there, it will build out a word list of the types of words that it sees used commonly within the DOM. And the goal here is that you can find naming conventions that the company uses if they have a naming sequence for, internal assets or anything else. The goal is to find those, and then we bring them back and test to see if any subdomains are using that same naming convention. And this can be a great way to find target URLs for bug bounty hunting that other people are missing. So I love this here. So you'll come through the brute force, just hit scan, obviously do the auto scan, it'll run them all. These two run really well at the same time. So I wouldn't have any problem running them at the same time. And ultimately you'll get the results. Results look the same. It's just a list there. And then we come down to consolidate and live web servers round 2. It's the exact same thing. It's the exact same process whatsoever. So we'll rebuild it. Any new subdomains that are found by either one of these, consolidate into the list, and then we get a new list of live web servers. Now we need this updated list because now we're going to be crawling every single one of these in the final step to identify any subdomains that are listed in the DOM as we're going through and crawling those. Might be in, a link and an anchor HTML element. It might be in the JavaScript. Most of the time it's in the JavaScript, but we're going to crawl both of those. Got two different tools, GhostSpider and Subdomainizer. Obviously, the greater attack surface, the greater crawl surface on these different URLs, how easy it is to crawl, and then the number of live good grief, I cannot talk. The number of live web servers that you have identified is going to greatly affect the amount of time it's going to take to run these. Expect this to take quite a bit of time if all of these URLs are, have hundreds of endpoints that can be crawled and this and that. This also does some work with the headless browser and everything if you have single page applications. But ultimately it's going to crawl through and find any additional ones. And then we do the same thing again to get our final list. Any results of these that need to be consolidated into our list of unique subdomains. And then from that, let's get a final list of live web servers here that we can use. And we reach this decision point that I've talked about multiple times in this video. So we have a list of live web servers that are associated with subdomains for this target, right? Now, one of the things that we can do, first of all, you can come in and see the overall results for each tool, what was successful, was not. Yeah, we are getting an error with CTL. I need to take a look at that. Don't know what's causing that. That's fine. We'll look at it later. Then you can come through and take screenshots and gather metadata. Now, I'm not going to do it on this because it's going to take some time. Let's find one that's much, much smaller here. How about, what do we have for the proof? This says 0 live web servers. What about the ed? Nothing there. Wait, did the proof it? Did it just take a second to load? It does have one live web server. That works, probably just the main one. So, okay, so let's come down here and I will go ahead and hit take screenshots. Now this is going to take just a second to go through. It's going to use Nuclei to take a screenshot of every single live URL that's found, loads it up in a headless browser, lets that load, gathers some basic information on top of that. By the way, you can always come back here and see what it's doing. I have very, very verbose logs in here that will show you what the tool is doing at any point. Right here's the Nuclei scan that was just run, and it's going to take a minute before it finishes there. There you can see it successfully finished, and we come back here and we should see the DOM update. There you go, boom. This shows how many days since the last screenshot and the last metadata scan was run. This is infinity, means there has not been one run yet. The reason for this is if you took the screenshots 30 days ago on the data that you have, those are probably stale. You probably want to run that again. Metadata might be the same type of thing. So it's good to know how long it's been so that there may have been some changes. Now you can click on the view screenshots modal here. That'll open it up, show you the individual screenshots, some basic information. Then you can click on the gather metadata. Again, now I'm not going to click on that now because even with one, it's going to take long enough that it doesn't make sense to do with this demo. And I don't want to walk away and have to come back and do this. I just want to go ahead and get everything recorded. But that's about it. Once you gather metadata, the view metadata button will open. It will open a list of accordions that you can expand, have all types of different information, and the ROI report will be available for you as well. You click that, it'll open up. You have every URL on a page along with the score at the top. I've shown this many different places, so again, I don't feel the need to put it specifically in here. It'll be pretty self-explanatory, and it's going to be in a bunch of my videos in the future. But yeah, basically get screenshots, gather metadata, you can view it, you can do the ROI report. That's going to take you over to the URLs. But again, we're not going in there yet. And the URL part is the URL workflow is yet to be built. So really right now, the core functionality, I certainly use this a lot, but a lot of what I do is kind of get to identify those live web servers, and then we want to pull them back to use in the company workflow. That's really what I want to show here in this demo here. So let's go back to the Grammarly. And all these have, I think I've run on every single one of these, if not the majority of them. So we have a bunch of information for those. Let's come back down and we get back to our consolidate root domains, right? So we've created 13 targets. We've gone through, we've grabbed a bunch of information. Now we want to move on to cloud asset enumeration. This is a brand new piece. There was some basic functionality in the FireCloud tool in version 1 of my framework, but this is where we're getting into the super fancy stuff. And I cannot tell you how much I love identifying the cloud assets directly, identifying things like Cognito, API Gateway, finding those, you can test those services directly. I've been getting a ton of AWS Cognito bounties lately. It's amazing how many people misconfigure that. Let's just say that. How many people choose to implement it with what seems to be a lack of basic understanding of how it, look, and it's also tough to get right. I shouldn't be talking, look, it's a really hard thing to do. But anyway, it's a good thing to look out for. AWS Cognito, I would definitely learn it. You can, if you identify that and you identify like the user pool and the identity pool values like that, then you can go to your own AWS CLI. And if they have misconfigured IAM policies, you can interact with those directly from your AWS account and potentially create new users, change users' values, all types of different things depending on how those IAM things are configured. And it's amazing how often you find IAM policies that just allow anybody to do anything on AWS Cognito. It's so yeah, anyway, we'll look at it. So keep the coffee going here. I think I'm about an hour and something into this recording so far. But yeah, so we're gonna start with using a lot of the information that we have here. We're gonna go back to amass enum, but this is a different type of command. It definitely takes a lot less time. It's specifically focused on finding things like CNAME records, PTR records, the type of records that are going to be AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, fully qualified domain names that are associated to the services and to the applications, the root domains that we have, right? So, and each one of these work with the goal of running them over and over again and building up the attack surface. So I really don't want you to look at these as like running individual scans. That's why you can see like the number of domains that have been scanned. Ideally, you're going to use each one of these to build up your attack surface over time because they can take quite a bit of time here. So for amass enum, let's do that first. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to come in and configure it. Now, when you click configure, you can go through and search it, do anything else. The estimated times are not right. I'll be honest with you. A lot of them are just kind of AI slop algorithms that I had thrown up real quick while I was getting everything built out. I'm going to make all those better. Yeah, but it kind of is what it is now. So you can see what the domain is, whether or not it's selected. You've got these really easy things to do. Deselect, select all. You can see what type it is. So was it found from a wildcard result? Was it found from our root domains? Is it an actual wildcard target that we've added, etc.? But you got all these here, and you can even you see where they're set to scan. So you can select scan to run it again, or you can come in here to select unscanned. And here we can see we've actually got 71 targets right now that have not been scanned that we could go ahead and include. So yeah, you can do that however you want, but you can do them one at a time. It doesn't matter, right? When a scan completes, it will, if there's already results for that domain, then it will just update those results. And if the results don't exist at all, it'll create them. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. So yeah, so you're going to build these up over time. So you'll save your configuration there, and then you'll go in and hit scan, and it's just going to run through them one by one. You'll be able to see it in the command from the output there. You can see the history just like anything else. And then ultimately you can come in and see what the results were here. So we found 221 assets that looks like, oh, it's clouding them. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong button. What am I talking about? Come up here. History here. Yeah, okay. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it looks a little different. So the history up here, you can see these accordions. So it'll show you, was it successful? How many domains were scanned? Everything that was found. And then if you expand it off, it will actually show you what domains were run, give you a bit more information there. And then when we come to the results of the correct one, the amass enum, then you can see each of those results. Again, we can filter, and so I like this filter here. You've also got some of the raw results that you can pull out if you want, but you scroll through here. I got to get pagination and everything else, but you can also do these filters. So let's say AWS DNS, right? We want to filter these out. So let's do a negative search of those, and then we'll add another filter, and let's also do CloudFront. We don't want to focus on those, right? We'll do a negative search of that. And all we have left is Google right now for this one. So it's actually a little surprising. There's some other ones that we can scan, but this is typically something that I'll do to filter out everything but like, ELBs, right? The specific AWS ones that you can find, but those are not specifically showing up there right now. That's totally fine. DNSX. So DNSX, this is, first of all, we're looking to find, this is a tool by Project Discovery, by the way, along with a ton of these here, if you're not familiar with it. But we're looking to find enriched DNS data for all of the domains that have been scanned. We also, through those, we're also looking for any CNAME records, PTR record, text records, anything like that might point to a cloud service, third-party service, anything that could be tested. So this works very much the same way. You want to go through and build up and scan everything here. You've got all the different options. You can search for it. It's the exact same modal there. History should be the same thing as well. Yep, although, I don't remember how I did this. All right, I gotta fix that. That UI is pretty screwy, but that's fine. Scan does what it does. And then the results over here, you got all of these different DNS records again. So you got a lot of additional stuff other than cloud domains here, and you'll probably see those come up. You can do, oops, I cannot type. You can go through and specifically see the CNAMEs. This is something that I like to do a lot, right? So these assets point to a CloudFront instance. These are redirecting over to an Office thing there. Here we've got email recruiting goes over to a mailgun org. All right, so I love DNS information for bug bounty hunting. It makes it so easy, so quickly to see, things like, oh, look at this, right? So we've got image.send that goes to a CloudFront instance, but we've also got that domain that points to this very interesting, unique, fully qualified domain name there. So that's a good one to go and test with. This is also a good place to look for subdomain takeovers, so check this. I don't know what exacttarget.com is or sfmc/content.com, but if we can go in and recreate these, then, potentially we can get a subdomain takeover there. Same type of adding as well, right? You can add additional ones. You can do a negative search, etc. Okay, so coming down here, once you go through the DNS enumeration, now, once again, very indicative of the wildcard. That's not the right way to say it. I kind of stole this from the wildcard workflow a little bit. It's a better way to say it, but we're going to do brute force and we're going to crawl, look for these as well. Now, this is another one of those areas where I'm going to take some time and highlight this because a lot of work has come into these sections. First of all, CloudyNum. For anybody that's not familiar, I actually don't know where. This does point to the original one. Perfect. Okay. So for anyone that's not familiar with CloudyNum, this is a tool that's been around for a long time to enumerate cloud services based on specific strings or what they call keywords. So, for Grammarly, we can go in and keyword Grammarly and it will test, Grammarly.s3.amazon AWS. It does brute forcing to test common naming patterns for all types of different services and uses those to try to find targets for a penetration test or for bug bounty hunting. So this tool's been around for a while. If we come down here, we can see that the first thing we have on a README is this note for the future of CloudyNum. And, you can read through everything yourself, but ultimately it really says that, hey, this is an older tool that this individual built, mostly for a pen test involving Azure. They are moving more towards using Nuclei for this. Now, it is still supported and maintained, and they've done a really, really phenomenal job of it. But when I was looking through, I noticed that a lot of the AWS services, especially, hadn't really been added and built it out, and the domains were maybe a little bit more outdated. I personally specialize in AWS pen testing. That's the majority of my experience working at companies that are a 100% AWS shop. So what I decided to do was actually clone this or fork it, sorry, not clone it, fork it, and I'm going to be maintaining my own version of it, right? So let's close out of that there, and let's get my GitHub back up here. And if we come back to Arson, we'll go to repositories. I've made a couple posts on this as well, but here we go. So I went ahead and did my own fork. This is the tool that's actually running. I'm not going to go through everything here. Oh, yeah, I have a link to I'll have to replace this with a new version here. But I've done first of all, a ton of updates to the tool as well. So AWS originally only checked for 2 services. I bumped it up to 14. I've expanded some of the Azure and the GCP as well. Added some additional functionality to where you can go in and control specifically which one you want to do. Added some verbose stuff in there as well. I added multiple different word lists, so you can go in there and do that. So all types of different, functionality. And then really the AWS enumeration logic is dramatically updated. Let's just say that. I don't necessarily want to say improved. It's just updated to represent AWS's environment today. So feel free to go through and read through that. Feel free to just use this on your own outside of the framework as well. It's there, for you, please. But it's built entirely into this tool as well, along with this config modal, which allows you to configure all of the different settings within this. So first of all, if you want to add any additional keywords, and I've updated the logic for the keywords so that instead of just trying them one by one, it will actually try sequences and combinations of 2 or 3. So you can go in there and add that. Just understand that's going to exponentially increase the amount of time that the scan is going to take, right? I have a bunch of different options here for DNS resolvers. You can see there's the multiple DNS or just do a single DNS here. Most people are going to use a multiple DNS. And then you can add your own, right? So if you want to come in and just upload your own specific ones, or a hybrid mode, which is where you can just type in any additional ones here and they will automatically be added in. So, 8.8.8.8 is already included, but if we add it in here, you can see now total 119. So it will automatically pop that up. Yeah, ignore the Grammarly thing, by the way. I've been doing testing on them. Okay, I'll get rid of that. We'll go back to the default list. That'll be fine. Custom word list, right? So a mutation word list and brute force word list. This was already functionality. You can just upload your own. There's also a build button, which I'm not going to click this right now because it can take some time, but I do really like this. So this is my own custom functionality that I built, where if you click the build button, it will replace the default word list by building one out using CEWL and going through all the other domain names that have been discovered and building out word lists from those other domain names. So the goal is you've already got naming conventions with the domains that you have. You're going to find other naming conventions by crawling these live web servers, and then it will go and build a dynamic word list to hopefully find more things there. Come over here on the right. You can choose, slide the number of threads you want to do. You can select which one of these target, platforms you want to use. I'll go ahead and keep them all included here. And then what services, what regions do you want to do, There's all types of different AWS ones that you can do, different regions. So you can get very granular, or you can just kind of spray it across there. So yeah, very happy with the way that came out. I've already had quite a bit of success with it. So yeah, I hope you do too. Everything else is basically the same. We come in here to the results, which we saw earlier briefly, right? So here's all types of different S3 buckets that were found, right? So here's one that was found as protected. Here's ones that are found to be redirects that are all pointing to a specific one. Here's one that it says investigate, so we get a 400 response. So that might be an interesting one to take a look at. Protected. If it's open, it will tell you and it will list everything out. I don't think we have any of that there. So yeah, got some good results there. It'll also show any Azure and everything that you find. And then we also have Katana over here. Now, if you're not familiar, Katana is another project discovery tool, and it's included in the metadata scan and all other things as well, or a bunch of other things as well. Not all other things, that's a silly thing to say. But it's included in the metadata scan where we're gathering information, IP port scan, things like that. Katana is just a really great written in Go. It's a crawler to crawl through and identify endpoints for a target URL. So what we do here is we crawl any of the live web servers that we've potentially found, or any of these here. So you can actually select any domain if you want. We don't even have to know if it's a live web server. And my framework will go through, it will run Katana on it, and then if it finds any results, it will essentially have a list of endpoints, of full URLs, including the path and parameters and everything else, and it will query each one of those one by one, pull the DOM up, and it will attempt to find any cloud asset domains that are written within that DOM. Now, of course, right, there's some, you need to go in and make sure that they're actually associated with it, but that goes with any of these here. Everything else, I think I already showed this. Yeah, everything else is mostly the same. You come in and choose what you want. History, yep, all the same type of things. And when you click the results, come on, starting to lag here. Yep, once again, you can find the ones. I tend to get some of the best results from this one here, the most usable results, right? These S3 buckets that are popping up it shows you what the service is, where it was found, and then what that actual cloud asset is. So you can go through and test these, right? S3 website. I wish we would have something like an incognito or anything, but doesn't look we have that there. That's totally fine. But yeah, so that is the 4 tools, the 2 main steps to go through cloud asset enumeration. Again, I'm super happy with the way that these things came out, and it is completely, sounds too dramatic, but it's completely changed, revolutionized was the word I was going to use. Somewhere in between changed and revolutionized the way that I do my bug bounty hunting. I've spent the past year really digging into AI security, cloud security infrastructure, and really kind of trying to make sure that I am a proper product security engineer, that I understand how a product, a SaaS product, can be insecure at every step, from the build pipeline, from the code that's going in, to the cloud infrastructure, to the custom code in the application. Every single piece of that, any AI integrations that it has, because ultimately you really have to have that full picture in order to effectively come in and evaluate a company's attack surface. This video is taking longer than I thought, but that's okay. So we're getting to the end of our process. We have gone through the company scan, we've gone through the whole workflow scan. We came back, we've gone through and identified all the different cloud assets. Now we want to build out the entire company attack surface. So you're just going to click Consolidate here. I'm not going to click that because it's going to take a very, very long time. First, what it does is it goes through like all the other Consolidate buttons and it builds a unique list for each one of this. ASNs, network ranges, IP addresses, domain names, cloud asset domains, and live web servers. This is ultimately what you're going to have to work with your attack surface. Now, once again, we don't have anything in either in ASNs or network ranges because Grammarly is 100% cloud-based, at least from what I've been able to find. Consolidate is also going to go through and gather a bunch of metadata and information. It can take quite a bit of time, right? So especially if you have these kind of numbers, it really depends. But I think this scan ended up taking overnight to complete when I hit Consolidate. So just have the right expectations there. I'm going to continue to optimize all of these, but it's going to be a work in progress. Once this is done, you have the Explore button here. And this is another one of those things that I use constantly while I'm using this tool. So you can see we can come in and just scroll through and understand the company's attack surface here. Now, this doesn't seem to have a ton of enriched data, and I need to take a look as to why, but most of the time there's going to be a lot of additional enriched data here. This looks like, yeah, this is some older stuff, but for any of the IP addresses, typically we're going to see information on the ASN, the organization. We may have some bug fixes there. Again, this is the day one, essentially, of the beta launch, so please bear with me. That really is to be expected. Domain names, we got a bit more information here, although again, okay, so we are getting, right, here's some, okay, this is looking a lot better. This is what I would expect to see. So we've got the domain name here. We've got a bunch of A records and IP addresses that are pointing there. Doesn't have SSL or not, right? We can really 3p/access grammarly.com. This gives us a 404 in an AWS ELB. This tells us it's probably an API. We can get more information, but it's a valid SSL certificate. We can see that those are all A records. Those A records are stored in Route 53 in AWS. So this just tells such a great story very, very quickly as we are glancing it. Yeah, that one probably shouldn't be there, but let's see. Cloud asset domains. I mean, these are all basically the same type of thing. You can do the negative and positive searches here. The cloud asset domains is going to take a little bit more time to load up there. I'm pushing my system to the limit on this. There we go. Yep, and you can see where they were found. This is all going to be improved over time. The information is included in here, the Consolidate. There's like basically everything just needs to be optimized and improved. That's really where we're at right now. The URL thing I'm going to build out at some point in the future, but ultimately getting this to the point where all this enriching data is going properly is my #1 priority. And then live web servers is probably the main one that I focus on. All right, what's the URL? What port is it on? What was the status response? We can go through and search those, the title. These are all valid bug bounty targets that we know you can go and test on. So the last thing that we have is nuclei scanning. And anything here any of these targets in the attack surface can be a target for nuclei scanning. And nuclei just supports every single one of these here that you can target here. So once again, of course, you've got the history. You can go and see what happened and what didn't. That's always good. It will show you what you have selected, the number of templates you have selected. The estimated time is not right in any way, shape, or form right now. I'm going to get that fixed, but we kind of just are where we are. If I click configure, so this is where we can come in and decide what targets we want to include in the scan. So you can take any combination of targets from any one of these, and you can go and select them to be in the target. So right now we've got all of these targeted here, all of the live web servers. We could say we also want to include, let's say, any of these, and now we've got a total of 728 targets. Let's just save that for the heck of it so we can show. Yeah, so you can make this as big or small if you want. This ain't gonna take 55 minutes, I'll just be honest with you. But it is what it is. You also come in and select the template. So you can select which of these you want to include, like the different columns, the different tags here. You can also do your own custom template. So you would highlight it to say you want to include it, and then you would hit this upload button, which is going to be where you can go in and actually upload those things there. And then you can choose the severity level as well. If you only want to look for, medium, high, critical, etc., you could go and set up something like that. So this is a fairly common setup there. Then you hit the scan. Again, scan is going to take a while. Then you have the results. I showed these very briefly, but we can come up and really dig into them now. There's a ton here. So again, you can do your searches. If you just want to search for any general thing that's listed within the name there, I honestly don't use that one too much. We can go through and only look for specific severities. This really should be selecting multiple ones. I can do that. Different categories. And then what I really love, this is what I do a lot. First thing I come in and see all templates, because this is only going to show a template on the list if there was a valid finding, right? So you can come through and see very quickly what are the findings that we have. And then, okay, well, here's public Swagger APIs. Okay, well, let's click on this one, right? And then all the information for the finding is in here. You can copy it, you can go do all that. Right, so here's where it was found, API, QA, Genius, etc. The matcher doesn't have anything specifically in the matcher. You can recreate it with a core, shows the raw request and response so that you can go and use that there. But yeah, so this is what I do fairly commonly. Let's come over, we take a look at this one here. You can see the same type of thing. And we'll just come back up to all templates. We can list everything there. Now, if you look at this bar in the middle, we have the scan. It shows how many findings, how many targets were included and everything. Click on this and it will list out all of the different scans that we have. They'll be highlighted as red if it was, green if it was successful, red if it was not, and you can click back and see this. So these are all moments in time that you can load up and see what those results are going to be. And then you can also scroll through here and just manually click on any ones that you want to do here. All right, so all the nuclei results are all included in this modal. Okay, what else do I need to go through? Because that's the core functionality that we built out right now. Let's maybe come back up to the top here. Let's go back up to the settings. We'll click through each one of these. And I think that's going to be just about it. I think, yeah, we'll see. So settings, again, we already talked about API keys. Let's come up to rate limiting. And I tried to include these accordions to explain more about what we're doing for each of these. But so any tool that runs in here where we have the ability to adjust the rate limiting, you can come in here to this section and adjust how quickly or how slowly it runs within reason, right? They're all sliders, but you can come in and make any modifications to these. Then you would just hit the save settings there and it would store that. You also, and huge shout out, by the way, to the discussions, because both of these were recommended in the discussions, the rate limits and the custom user agent header settings. These were all things that people requested in the discussions, and so I came in and did it. But you can also add in a custom user agent and a custom header. And any tool that we have that will interact with the target companies' domains in any way, anything that's not passively just looking at DNS records, it will add these custom user agents and custom headers. A lot of programs require you to identify yourself when you're testing against them. Now, right now, the tool is very, very non-invasive. There's a lot of DNS processing and things like that, but there are a lot of tools that crawl and things as well. So we want to make sure that we're respecting those companies' wishes and identifying ourselves so that they can use that to filter out their logs, scroll through the logs when they need to investigate, etc. API keys we have already seen. You can go in and add any additional ones. Burp Suite settings. So this tool works very much with Burp Suite. I'll show that in a little bit, exactly how I do that. But you can come in here and tell it. Now, there's no functionality with this yet, but soon you're going to be able to pass information back and forth. I'm going to have my own Burp Suite extension that I'm building out. I've built in a couple before, but this is specifically for the framework that will allow them to talk back and forth, share data much easier than you can with the current API. So this is where you can come and add in all that information. And then API integration as well. I've talked about this, and we got a little bit more information there. Eventually, this will work with that validate. It's also going to work in the metadata scan and a few other places. Anywhere that we can put AI in here, I'm definitely going to do it. There's also going to be a chatbot down here in the bottom right that is essentially going to allow you to ask questions based on your data. So that's going to be a RAG system for anybody who started to dig into AI stuff, where you ask the chatbot a question, it will essentially take the relevant information from the database that you've collected, it will pass it up to whatever AI provider you have, and that AI provider will give you guidance on, say, if you ask it a question like, which one of these targets would be good for bug bounty hunting for client-side injections? And it'll go back to the back end of the framework. The framework will pull out all the technology information, whatever it would need that it thinks is going to be helpful. And then it will send that up and it will ask the question. Ultimately, that LLM is going to parse through and say, well, these are using React. So probably not a great chance to do that. Whereas these two are .NET applications and they have hundreds of endpoints and we're seeing a lot of user controlled input that's being reflected. So these are the two that I would focus on. I want to build a chatbot in here where you can come in and ask those questions, and that's going to be driven by the local AI service as well as any API keys that you add in here. If there's other settings that you want to control, please let me know, but that's what I've built out so far at that point. We also have the export. So obviously I imported the data. Now this is another feature that was requested, is any one of these database tables or sections, couples of it that you want to do, you can do a CSV export of it. You can do them all at the same time. You could do one at a time, however you want to do it. You just select them by, clicking them. These are the ones that are unselected there, right? And then you just hit export to CSV. The database export here, this is if you want to export that .arson scan data so that you can load it up in other places. You come over here and every one of your scope targets can be selected or deselected to be exported. And then you just hit this export database. In fact, I'll just do it right now so you can see it. It takes a fairly short amount of time, probably 1 or 2 minutes. There you go. So you can see I was already doing my testing. So super easy. Let's see. I think that's it. I mean, the import looks the same here. You don't have your back button to go back to the main thing when you already have a scope target here, because that logic and flow doesn't make sense. So that's why it looks a little different. But other than that, this is the exact same thing. I do have a link to, does this open a new tab, I hope? Yeah. About blank? That shouldn't be. Why did that happen? I think it's just lagging. I do have links to my YouTube, my GitHub as well up here. I think. I don't know what's going on here. Let me try turning off, disable this real quick, just to see. I think it's just logging or lagging. I'm pretty sure that's supposed to work. Anyway, that's supposed to link to my YouTube. I'll check here in a second. Does the GitHub actually? Oh, there it goes. It's just taking some time. There you go. Okay. All right. So that links to my YouTube if you want to go and watch some YouTube videos. There's going to be a lot of those built into the Help Me Learn section as well that'll point directly to relevant YouTube videos. I just have to get around to that. And then GitHub's the same thing. If you want to click on that, and it'll load up my GitHub profile here, and you can see all the different tools that I have. Again, if you don't know me, if you're just finding me through this framework, everything that I build is public, is free. I don't keep anything, in a private repo or anything like that. It's, it's all available for you. Please feel free to look through and use anything that you want. Yeah, there. And then the last is my little button that goes to my Buy Me Coffee section there. So yeah, if you are interested, of course, it's going to take forever here to load up, but if you are interested in supporting me, obviously I would really, really appreciate that. There's been certainly quite a bit of work that's gone in here, but please, please, please only donate if it makes sense. I do not want anybody to be, weighing whether or not, like, if you need the money, please hang on to the money, right? This is a passion project of mine. I'm very passionate about doing it. If you get a lot of value out of it and you feel like you want to, give back to me and kind of, buy me an extra cup of coffee so that I'll continue to work on it, I definitely really appreciate that. It would break my heart if I found out that anybody was, weighing whether they should send in money to me or go take it to do anything that they would need it for whatsoever. If you have a need for that money whatsoever, please use that money for that need or anything. But this is here if you want it, if you want to do it. Let's just say that. Okay, so that's the tool from start to finish. I don't even know what it was. I didn't plan how to wrap this up. I didn't plan much any of this. I usually don't. I will say, so I've got my burp suite up here as well. I typically, it's kind of hard to show on this here, but I typically have my framework running on one screen and burp suite running on the other screen here, and I will bounce them back and forth. So at any point where I go and start testing on an individual URL, I will move over here to, you can see that I've been doing a lot of testing on Grammarly, enumerating their attack surface. I will move over to burp to start to do that manual testing and everything. So, and I'm always moving back and forth between testing and enumeration. That's just part of the methodology. I'm gonna talk a lot more about that in the future, now that I finally have time to make videos and live streams and everything. But yeah, so I'll kind of move back and forth. That's the main thing. If you look at these, the four monitors that you see over here, I have my framework on this one to the far left. I have burp on the one that you're seeing right now. I have ChatGPT over here to the right. And anytime I have any questions whatsoever, I have like, an HTTP response. I'll just grab this whole thing and say, hey, what do these headers mean from a bug bounty hunting perspective? Right? Just go drop it in ChatGPT all the time. And then the screen up here, I always have Slack, which is what I use to collaborate with the other bug bounty researchers that I hunt with. Because if you haven't seen my workshop that I did at DEFCON on bug bounty hunting as a team, that is pretty much the only way that I do bug bounty hunting right now. And it's what's going to be my next research project over the next year, is getting that team up and running in the way that I want to see them running. So, all right, good grief. I don't even know how long this is going to be. I've had a bunch of technical problems trying to record this too. So there's some cuts in the middle and everything. I apologize for that. But overall, I think we're in good shape. I think that's going to give you what you need. I'm going to come back over here. Just going to go to the repo, see if there's anything else that I can think of that I want to talk through. You can see the release itself is right over here. All right, and it's really this zip that you're downloading. Oh, thank you so much, somebody. Oh, thank you, Mohammed. That's very nice. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's about it. Again, I've got some links to some other things, the troubleshooting. I do have some FAQs down here. I've just tried to anticipate as much as possible. Most of what I talked about in, this thing here, the wildcard workflow and all that is laid out here. But yeah, I think it gives you what you need. I think let's go ahead and get the screen switched out here. I think that's good. If you're still watching, thank you. I hope it's helpful. Again, this is something that I really, for a long time, I've been passionate about building out the educational materials that I wish existed, and the tools as well, that I wish existed when I was starting bug bounty hunting. I don't know how many people know this about me. I mentioned it a couple times, but I'm a high school dropout. When I was 18 years old, everybody that knew me would have told you that I'm gonna end up working at Burger King or something for the rest of my life. And I just didn't have any direction. And luckily, between joining the military and finding cybersecurity and specifically, gosh, I can't talk today, specifically application security and bug bounty hunting, I just fell in love. There was so much of it was something that I knew immediately that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And it was a tough journey going from a high school dropout who's at the time was enlisted, was a private enlisted in the Army, to going through and getting, an associate's degree and then a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree, and, learning all of these things and going out and finding these public resources and stuff. And people like Nahamsek and Jason Haddix and John Hammond and Insider PhD and all these incredible people that took this time to put their knowledge out there are the reason that I was able to get to where I am. I didn't spend money doing this. I went out and found public resources that people spent their free time putting out there and contributing to the community and helping to build the community up. And so I'm hopefully what I've done here with this framework and the educational material that I've already created and the YouTube content that's going to be coming soon. By the way, my goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of next year. So you will see YouTube content from me. I promise. I know you've heard that from me before. Life's been kind of crazy for the past year. I want to get the framework done, but it's coming. I don't lose my train of thought. I'm tired. Anyway, I really am, I hope, building out the educational materials that's going to help the next generation come up and hopefully come up even faster than I did. My hope is that I can kind of cut a trail through the jungle and leave it there for everybody else that's coming up. So I hope it's helpful. I really am. It's the tool that I've wanted to build for years. I've kind of had it in my head. And my technical ability has finally gotten to the point where I can make it happen, which I'm very happy about. So I'm going to continue. Again, there's going to be a lot of optimizations, a lot of improvements. I'm going to be doing, I've got a team of bug bounty hunters that I built out that we're going to be doing a year-long research project, figuring out the best way to work together as a team, trying all different types of strategies. And then that's hopefully going to be my DEFCON talk next year. Obviously this year is on the framework here, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to get on here. Like I said, I hope it's helpful. Best of luck in your bug bounty hunting journey. I'm going to do everything that I can to help in, the capacity that I can, right? Without completely burning myself out and trying to put as much out there, that has the greatest impact across the greatest number of people. So, hopefully I've done that. Hopefully, well, if you're watching this, it's probably after DEFCON. So, see you there. If you're there, see you next year, right? Live streams are coming soon. I'm going to take a break for the rest of August because I'm exhausted. I'm sure you can tell. September 1st, new YouTube videos start. New live streams start. I start bug bounty hunting as a team. We're going to be doing some of those live. We're going to be doing interviews with them and kind of watching some of these, some of them are on the team are very experienced and some of them are very new. And we're going to watch these individuals grow over the next year. I'm really, really excited about it. All right. I guess that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything. Thank you for sitting here watching me, however long this is. I hope my tool was helpful. Best of luck. Go make some money or whatever you want. Go find your own version of success with bug bounty hunting. That's what I should say. All right. Cheers.